I think rock bottom teaches us more than we give it credit for.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned your rock bottom moment was that I've had very similar things. Driving used to be a release to me, and it got to a point where I was afraid to drive. In one instance, I was home alone and I was like, yo, I'm scared to be home by myself. I'm going to drive to my mom's house. I lived in Timonium, so I lived in like northern Baltimore County. My mom lives, in West Baltimore. So I'm about to jump on the highway to go to my mom's house. She's like, yo, just come to the crib. Everything will be fine. I get in the car. I'm like 5 minutes from home. I'm like, yo, I can't make it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to, if I get on the highway, like, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Like, there's no hotels close by. Like, once I get off of 83 and I hit that 695, like, I got to get to, like, Pikesville before I can even get to anything, like, remotely close to, what I would need. Or I would have to, like, bang 83 South and hit, Sinai,
Right.
But it was all too far fetched. So I called my mom and I'm in tears. I'm crying. I'm like, Shorty, I can't come.
Right.
Like, I can't do it.
Right.
And she ended up driving out to my house, which took like 45 minutes just to be there with me, because I couldn't leave to go to where anyone else was. And then, I was afraid to be by myself. It's monophobia is what it is. It's the fear of being alone.
Wait a minute, what is it called?
Monophobia.
Monophobia.
Yeah, it's the fear of being by yourself.
Okay.
Which is associated with anxiety.
Okay.
And then the other instance, similarly, as I was actually home and my mother was coming to pick me up to take me to go to lunch, just to help me feel better. And I wasn't home alone, but I was trapped in a room. Like, I locked myself in my bedroom, laying on my floor, like by my bed, crying, and couldn't understand why. So it was interesting, like the question that you had asked, like what happens that you're able to accept it? Like, for me, I didn't have a choice.
Talk to me about that.
Like, the rock bottom of my anxiety and my addiction, which ultimately, resulted from being on prescription medication. It faced me with my own humility. It was the biggest slice of humble pie that a human being can ever experience. Right. And it's like, and I always say, like, for a person that actually has an anxiety disorder and experiences chronic anxiety attacks or chronic panic attacks, like, being faced with your own mortality on a day-to-day basis has a funny way of humbling you. Right. So it's like the only way for you to even have a fighting chance of getting yourself out of it is to accept that you have anxiety, to accept that it exists, and to accept that it does not define who you are.
Right.
If you can't, once you get into that rock bottom place, if you don't have the tenacity or the ability to formulate your thinking to be that, you'll never make it out of it.
Yeah.
It will continue to own you.
Yeah.
It will continue to possess you, and it will continue to control you.
Right.
So it's like having the strength to face it. Right. And I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it comes from the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. Maybe it comes from the belief that, God is not going to put more on us than we are capable of dealing with. Maybe it comes from the repetitive belief, of something higher than us that has given us the strength to face it. But I think it's very challenging to face it until you've gone to that rock bottom place.
Right. And one thing that that just occurred to me, even in telling, part of my own story, and Raven, you had started to speak to this already, is the support element, right? Because my wife, being the blessing that she is to me, she never judged me for it. She never made me feel like less than in all. I never felt that. And we're men here, so we could talk about, how women can do you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not showing up in the way that they're expecting you to show up, and they kind of give you that look like, come on, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I can't even respect you right now. You know what I mean? Like, how that can be, but she never gave me that. She just stood there, or sat there with me in those times. And there were several times, and you talk about this often, how, you would go to the emergency room or sit, in your car outside of the emergency
sleep in
room.
my car, yeah.
And so I took a few trips to the emergency room thinking that I was about to have a heart attack. And she would show up, if we were, we weren't together at that time, she would, show up and just be there with me, but never judge me. And similarly, Raven, you just talked about how you had a friend that was there to support you and to cover you in those moments. And one of the things that we've talked about before is even the script, so to speak, even the language to use when you are trying to support someone that is dealing with a panic attack or an anxiety in some form or fashion. And one of the things that I've been saying recently is my script is simply, are you okay? Because oftentimes when you see someone going through something, your first kind of inclination is to either grab them in some way, physically hold them, or, is everything, and it becomes a whole scene. Or some people kind of approach it from more of a judgmental aspect where they try to figure out for the person what they're going through. Hey, it looks like you're this, do you need this, that sort of thing. But simply for me, it's, are you okay? Because sometimes I don't understand yet what I'm going through. Or even if I do understand what I'm going through, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. So, if someone tries to jump ahead of me and tell me what they think I'm going through, it just completely causes me to shut down. So I think one of the important things through this entire experience is for the people around those that are experiencing anxiety to know what to do. And that can be very challenging. That can be very difficult because oftentimes people mean well, they just don't know any better.
And the other side of it too is like, those that are going through the anxiety in the moment may not know what they need.
Right.
I know for myself, I didn't, it's awesome that you and Raven both had that support. I didn't, like everything for me was met with judgment, which is why I turned to pills as hard as I did, because that was the only time that people actually enjoyed my company. If I was going through my anxiety or feeling a bit of overwhelm and I reacted a certain way, it was like, hey, did you take your medicine today?
Wow.
So it was like, okay, cool. Well, fuck it. I'll just take my pills. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm Debbie Downer, because I'm not on these pills. So I was met with judgment and I was met with criticism, because anxiety pushed me to become someone that other people didn't recognize.
Yeah.
So because they didn't recognize it, they didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was pushed further into what I thought was helping me against it,
right,
which was actually causing me a different dilemma. Right. It was creating an entirely different disease.
Right.